Can everyone see the screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes,
Yes, ma'am.
So now I will. So before I begin, I just want to tell you that all of you haven't really been to the lab last year, 12th standard. I don't know if you could attend labs in your 11th standard either. Probably you did. So this simple pendulum experiment, you might have already uh, done. Have you done the experiment of a simple pendulum to find acceleration due to gravity in the
Yes,
lab?
ma'am.
No, ma'am.
yes, ma'am.
Ma'am.
No, ma'am.
Okay. So
Yes,
some have
ma'am.
done,
No, ma'am.
most have done, but some have not done. It doesn't matter. We are going to do it now at home because there is no question of coming to the lab. The government has not yet started colleges in person. So we'll be doing it at home. Now, if it is such a simple experiment, which is done in high school years and all that, why are we repeating it? So the reason for doing it is to learn the skills of doing an experiment. So how do we plan the experiment, how we think of what the apparatus should be, and how we take the readings, and then finally, how do we calculate the error in the answer that we get. There is a difference between error and a mistake or inaccuracy or incorrect way of doing something. When we talk about error, as you must have already learned in your 11th, 12th standard and also in the prerequisite video that Rajesh sir had shared with you, an error is something that is inadvertent component of your process of taking observations, and it is something that you cannot avoid by being more vigilant or be using more smarter ways of taking readings. Having done all those things, thinking of proper way of taking readings, being clever in taking the readings, being clever in designing the apparatus for the particular experiment, in spite of all those precautions, there is some intrinsic error which remains in the data due to the nature of several ways. So you must have read about what are the sources of errors. One of the main sources is of course human error, but there are other systemic errors and so on and so forth. So that is the error which we have in mind, not a mistake that we do while taking the reading. That's not the type of error that we have in, that's not what we mean by error. That is just a mistake, which is not acceptable at all. So we are going to then learn how this can be done. So the aim of the experiment is to determine, of course, the acceleration due to gravity, that is G, using the simple pendulum. But the more important aim, of course, is to estimate the error in our measurement, because everybody knows what the value of the acceleration due to gravity should be. In all problems, you have either used it as 1000 centimeters per second square, or to be more precise, 980 centimeters per second square. And in FYBSE, you will always use the number as 980 or 9.8 meters per second square or 980 centimeters per second square, as the case may be. So we know the value, then why do we want to determine it again? So the point is that we need to learn the skill of determining this through our observations and then estimate the error. So the apparatus obviously is a simple pendulum and a stopwatch and a meter scale. This apparatus list should tell you what is the formula that we are going to use for finding out this, or rather calculating the value of acceleration due to gravity. What is the formula? Does anyone know?
E is equal to 2 pi into root L by G.
Root L by G. So therefore, we need to observe some quantities and then calculate. So what would be the observable quantities if we want to measure G, ultimately calculate G from the measurement?
Time period of oscillation.
Time period of
Length
oscillation.
of the pendulum.
Length of the pendulum. So that's why a stopwatch to measure the time period of oscillations, and a meter scale to find the length of the pendulum. And of course, the pendulum itself. So since we are going to be doing this at home, we are going to be making the simple pendulum ourselves. So how will you make it? Any ideas? We can have a few ideas. There are many ways of doing it, and the more creative you are, the better ideas you will get. So if we can just briefly discuss one or two ideas coming from you, then we can proceed. So what is the structure of a simple pendulum? Can anyone define that first?
It consists of a bob with a hook and a thread.
Yeah, ma'am. Actually, it consists of a wire string in which a bob is basically inclined towards downwards, and yeah. So this is the basic structure of simple pendulum.
Hmm. So the point is that it has to have a small heavy object at one end of the string, and the string should be as lightweight as possible, because in our formulation we assume the string to be weightless, so it should be as light, and the contrast between the mass of the bob and the mass of the string should be extremely high. The mass of the string should be completely negligible as compared to the weight of the bob, and therefore you should choose an object which you will use as the bob to be somewhat heavy, so that it will pull on the string and remain vertically, the string will remain vertically taut once you tie it up to a rigid support, such that there is scope for the this assembly of string and the bob to oscillate in a plane unhindered, and the point where the string is tied to a nail or a bar must be very tightly tied, so that there is no play in that place where you tie the knot. It must be a point, fixed point. Now, what can you use as a bob? Any ideas?
Bouncy ball.
Sorry?
Bouncy ball.
Bouncy ball. That is a very good option, because when you can tie a string around it, because we are not going to have a brass ball with a hook attached to it. That's what we have in the lab typically, but at home we are not going to have that.
Can use a coin.
A coin is little tricky, because firstly, coin may not be as heavy, and it should not slip out. No, you will have to tie it very securely to the string, and the attachment of the string to the bob also must be very secure. But a coin is good if you can make sure that you tie it, like you have to take cross threads and then tie it to the string, and it should not be wobbly. Mhm.
Ma'am, what about stone?
What about a
Stone.
stone?
Ma'am, lemon.
Lemon is also great. Lemon is a good
Ma'am, what about the
Science is very
plastic ball,
basic.
which is not that bouncy, right? Which is not made up of rubber. It's a plastic ball. How could it be?
See, plastic ball will be light. It should, if the fan is on in the room, it should not fly away. I mean, it should not be light, that it will not act as a. See, the whole idea of why the bob has to be heavy is that the center of gravity of the entire pendulum should be at the center of the bob that you select. So if the ball is a light plastic ball, it will not be heavy enough. The center of mass of the string plus plastic ball should not be somewhere in the middle of the string or something. So you should choose an object which is somewhat heavy. A very heavy, meaning not very heavy, but a reasonably heavy, high density object is what you should look at. So a bouncy rubber ball, or even an eraser, a fairly heavy, a small rectangular, something which is symmetric, so that you can define what will be the point of position which you can term as the center of gravity of that object.
Ma'am, what about a marble?
Yeah, marble is a reasonable idea, except that marble is obviously very smooth surface, right? Glass surface. So the string can slip off unless you manage to secure the string very tightly at the point where you are going to start, where it is tied to the thing, maybe using a sellotape or something. But you will have to be very clever with a marble. It should not slip, or it should not be loosely tied or something. We don't want there any motion between the string and the bob. Okay, so I think we have had quite a few good ideas. Small lemon or any other small fruit. We should not, the fruit should not be like a extended big apple or something. We want a small but heavy object. So bouncy, tight rubber balls that we get which are bouncy, or any object where you can securely tie the string. So a lemon is good. An eraser of rectangular shape is fine. Marble, as I said, could be little slippery, so take that only as your last resort. And a string should be something which is not easily stretchable, as far as possible, an unstretchable string, because the length of the pendulum must remain constant throughout the experiment.
Can I suggest one object?
Yes, sir.
Maybe a small nut bolt screw on. They are symmetrical also, and they are heavy, and people can get it from, if they have a spare one lying somewhere in scrap at home, it's fine. Or you can 5 rupees, 10 rupees, you can get it from a
Hardware shop.
hardware
Yeah,
shop also.
And it's a kind of a ring, so you can just tie a string very easily. You don't have to make a
Either
bow.
ring or hexagonal, so their dimensions can be measured very accurately.
Yeah, that is a very good idea, actually. Yeah. So that is as far as the simple pendulum is concerned. I'm sure now you have enough ideas to make one, and you all will make one yourselves by choosing a proper string which is fairly strong, so that the pendulum doesn't break during the experiment, and it should be somewhat, as much as possible, an unstretchable string, because the length must remain constant throughout the experiment. Now, what about the stopwatch? This is a simple one. What is the stopwatch that you will use? Do you have a stopwatch?
Phones.
Phone
Yeah,
is
ma'am. A normal phone, can we use
Yes,
it?
everybody has a normal mobile phone, which almost any mobile phone of today's day and age will have a stopwatch in it. So please use that. Meter scale.
Ma'am, in laboratory there is a long wooden scale, right?
Hmm.
So instead of it, we have a steel scale actually at home. So can we
Yeah,
go for it?
so at home, you cannot have a long 1 meter scale. We understand that. So you will have to be very careful in taking readings with a scale which is, 1 foot, that is 30 centimeter long. Or you can use another
Can we use
string to
measuring
make-
tape?
Measuring tape.
Yeah, measuring
Measuring
tape
tape.
also you can use, but measuring tape typically, we fold it and keep. So you will have to stretch it properly so that you make sure that you don't make a mistake in taking the length. Or what you can do is take another string to measure the length of your string, and then place it across your ruler and make the measurement. How will you make the measurement of the diameter of the bob? Because after all, you need that, right?
Ma'am, you can just place two parallel, I don't know, sticks or books on the edge, like the side of the bob, and then measure the distance like in diameter.
Yeah, but you will have to be very careful that both the sides, what you place as cardboard or something, are absolutely vertical and parallel to each other.
We can
Then
do it
only
with
if
a
it is
thread
a
also.
a spherical object, then you can take its diameter. But another more clever way is there.
We can use it a thread. We can use a thread
Yes.
also.
You can wind the thread around the diameter of the object, so at its maximum extent of sphericity, and then spread it, and you will get the circumference. And from the circumference, you will know the diameter.
Ma'am, what will be the upper surface from which we will bound the string?
You have to think about it. You can just tie the thread around your object, secure it by tying it in two perpendicular directions, and then tie a long string to that. Or if it is a O-ring like nut bolt wala nut, then you can just tie it, because you can just tie it around. It will have a central hole in it, right? Then there is no question of doing anything else. The point is that the object should be symmetric so that you can measure its dimension, whether it is a diameter for a spherical object or a hexagonal object has, you know, the radius of it. So we need to know the point of center of gravity to the point where the string starts. What is that distance? That distance has to be added to the length of the string to get the length of the entire simple pendulum. That is the point. Okay. So now let's look at the acceleration due to gravity formula. What is the formula? T equal to 2 pi square root of L by G. So what are the observables? The time period of oscillation and the length of the pendulum. So therefore, we invert this formula to get G is equal to 4 pi square L upon T square, where L is the length of the pendulum, T is the time period of one oscillation. And now the rest of the presentation will be about how to go about finding this length of the pendulum and the time period of oscillation, and how to get the error in them. All right. So if I may move further, let's discuss how to get this data. So the first point about getting the data in the procedure then of your experiment, after you have nicely created a simple pendulum, your first task is to find the length of the pendulum. So as I have already said, the length of the pendulum obviously has two parts to it: radius of the bob or the dimension of the bob, half of it. The diameter, if you find, then you have to take the radius, because the center of mass is at the center of the symmetric object that you have selected in place of bob. By bob, we just have used this generic word to mean any heavy object that you are using as the pendulum. The length of the string plus the radius of the bob. So how will you find radius of the bob? We have already discussed. There are one of the best ways is to use a string around the diameter of the spherical object, or if it is a nut or an o-ring or an eraser, then you can measure its dimensions and figure out what amount you should add to the in place of the radius if your shape is anything different than the sphere. So that is fine, but what about the error in these measurements? That's what is more important for us today. So what we will, I will discuss with you shortly what we will do to find the error in the measurement. But before that, let's also learn there are the two observables, no? L, the length of the pendulum, and T, the time period of the oscillation of the pendulum. So for this, we will select the least count of the stopwatch as 1 second. We will not take the least count of 0.1 second, or even some may have a fancy mobile phone where the stopwatch can give resolution of even 0.01 second. But we will not do that. We will take the least count as 1 second. And I'll discuss little later why that is so. Because choosing a correct measuring apparatus which will have the appropriate least count for the given task is also a thing to be learned in a physics experiment. So little later we can discuss why 1 second should be the least count once we know what is the ballpark value of the time period that we are going to measure. Okay, now let's go to the next point, and that is to explain to you what is the technique to measure the time period of oscillation. So before I go to that, can you tell me how would one measure the time period of oscillation? If those of you who have already done this experiment can definitely tell me how they did it.
Ma'am, you start.
Yeah.
Like, ma'am, how many oscillations are possible in 1 second?
In 1 second. And suppose it's not one full oscillation even, then what will you do?
Ma'am, first you take the time period for approximately maybe
We take a time period for 20 oscillations
and then you
20
divide it
Yes,
by
ma'am,
the
20
number.
and then 30, 40, like that.
Why 20, 30? I want time period of one oscillation, no?
I'm dividing
That
it like that.
Then we'll divide it by 20, by 30. So
But then why to do that? एक लेके काम खत्म हो जाएगा ना?
Ma'am, is to reduce the error in the measurement.
We
Huh?
Ma'am, we need to find the
Find the
Ma'am, it's impossible to get an accurate value with a single oscillation wherein difference would be easily measured. So it is
correct.
much more easier to get like a mean observation of multiple oscillations and then find a common ground, common time period.
So the reason why we take more than one oscillation is that the inaccuracy in the measurement of one oscillation will be very high. It will be very large. It's almost impossible to start the stopwatch at the moment and then stop it when the oscillation is complete. The error incorporated in this observation of just one oscillation will be unacceptable and will not give us a good answer. So therefore, we go ahead with 10 oscillations. Then what happens? We need to start the stopwatch at the start, although there might be some error in that exact start point. But then after 10 oscillations, when we again stop and there is some error in the stopping, which is of course we make at most effort to start it at the exact time and stop it at the exact time. In spite of that, if there is any error left, that will be divided by, that will reduce, right? It will be 1/10 of what would be the error if we were starting and stopping at the end of every oscillation. That's why we have to take a number of oscillations. Now there is another thought. Why, how many should I take? Should I take 10? Some people said 20, some said 30, 40, kuch bhi kar sakte. So is there any way of figuring out while we are designing the experiment, for this particular experiment or any other experiment, how many oscillations should I take? What would be the criteria for deciding that?
Ma'am, how specific you want your time period to be?
Yeah, what should be the accuracy of your measurement? What is the requirement of that? And you will find if you carry out an experiment by first taking readings for 10 oscillations, then 20, then 30, then 40, 50. After a certain number of oscillations, even if you increase the number of oscillations, the error in your measurement does not decrease. It kind of saturates to a certain minimum value, because after all, there is the least count of the stopwatch, there is the least count of your simple pendulum. So the answer of acceleration due to gravity can only be calculated to a certain error, and just by increasing the number of oscillations, you cannot bring in any decrease in that error. So then at that point, there is no point in taking more oscillations than that. You are just wasting time in taking the reading for longer and longer time. So one has to bring in a wise estimate of what will be a reasonable number of oscillations to take, so that you minimize the error, at the same time do not unnecessarily lengthen the time for your readings. So that is fine, but then there is a certain technique that we would want you to adopt, which also helps in reducing the error to a great extent. So what we suggest is that, like you have seen in rocket launches and all that, we do a countdown. So what we do is, first of all, you have to understand how we count one full oscillation. So what we will do in this experiment is, when the pendulum is at one extreme. So first of all, you have tied a string, there is a pendulum hanging by the string, it is straight vertical down. And then you will raise it by hand, bring it to a certain distance on, say, right side, and then release it. Now, first of all, even for that, how much should you move it and then release it so that it sets into nice oscillations in one plane? What should be the amplitude of oscillation? Is there any restriction on that? Can I raise it to a large angle?
Have a large angle, because we have to come to that formula, we have estimated the angles and taken the sine theta is just theta, some value. So large angles will deviate from the formula.
Yeah, so we have derived this formula assuming a very small angle, so that sine theta is almost of the order of theta, when theta is measured in radians, by the way, remember that. We cannot take a very large amplitude for these oscillations. I would suggest that if your string length is about 70 centimeters to about 1 meter, 60 to 1 meter is what the range we are going to tell you, then about 10 centimeters, 10, 12 centimeters should be the amplitude of your oscillations, not more than that. So we pull it to one end, about 5 to 7 centimeters or so, and then release it. Once you release it, it's going to go all the way, it's going to go to the center, then go to the other side, all the way to the left, and then come back to the center and then reach to the right extreme position. So from right to the center, left, center, right, that is one full oscillation. Sometimes some students make a mistake of counting half oscillation as one, like it starts from one end, goes to the other end, they say one. It comes back to the previous end, they say two. Then their time period goes half, and then their answer for acceleration due to gravity becomes very different from what the value we know as standard value. So once you have understood what is one full oscillation, so then you need to look at only one end of the pendulum when you are trying to take reading, because you want to see the start at that point, that extreme end, let's say right, and then when it comes back to right, that is your count one. Then again it goes and comes back to the extreme right, your count two. So you need not move your head sideways to look at it when it is at the left extreme end. You focus your attention on one side of the movement only. So focus on the motion of simple pendulum at its slowest point, that is at one of its extremes. At an instant when pendulum is at that extreme, start your count as -2. You will just count this in your mind. You will not start the stopwatch. So -2. Next time when pendulum arrives there, it's -1. The third time when the pendulum arrives there, that will be your count 0. And that's when you start the stopwatch. These two extra counts before starting the stopwatch will help you to make your eyes settle on the motion of the oscillating body and reduce human error. Also, when you release the pendulum by pulling it to one side, you need not start your stopwatch at that moment or anything. Let it oscillate for 2-3 times. Make sure that it is oscillating in one plane and not wobbling, and then only start this business of count down from -2, -1, and at 0 start the stopwatch. Then you will count 10 full oscillations. So at 0 point, you will start the stopwatch. When it comes back, you will count it as 1 and then 2. And then when it comes back the 10th time, you will start the stopwatch. Okay. So we are going to take readings for 10 counts, 10 oscillations. That is good enough for this experiment. So master this technique to measure time of oscillations. For any oscillating body, you might in future do any other experiment which requires you to take time period of oscillation for all different kinds of periodic motions. You should always do it this way. Now let's go to the observation. So first will be the determination of radius of the pendulum. First thing is to note down the least count of the measuring instrument. In our case, we have called it a meter scale, but it could be any scale. Usually you should use a scale which has the least count of 0.1 centimeter, which is 1 millimeter, but don't write it as 1 millimeter, write it as 1 centimeter. Stick to all measurements in centimeters and seconds, so that your answer for G will be of the order of 980 centimeters per second square. The diameter of the bob, basically we want to measure the diameter, right? We will take several readings, at least 5 of them, if not more. And why should we take several readings for the diameter?
So
And
that
then
we can get the
Get a
average
mean value so that our accuracy.
average, so that we can take average of all the. So it is understood that every value that we take will have some inaccuracy in it, and hence we take the average of all the values to get the as closest to the true value as possible. So this average diameter D average actually won't have 5 values here at all. It will simply have one value, which will be average of all these 5 actual readings DI. All right. So D average will actually be just one value. And then you will calculate absolute error. That is, this mod has gone up here. Pardon for that. DI minus D average without the sign. So mod of DI minus D average, you will write here. These will be again 5 readings, of course. And then what do we want to do? We want to calculate the average diameter, which is summation DI divided by N. That's what you will do to get this D average. But after that, to get the absolute error, average absolute error, we are going to use the root mean square formula. So in that video that was given to you as prerequisite, we had not mentioned it as the root mean square formula. So please note that that particular formula given in the video is not to be used. we will use this root mean square formula, which is given here and which will also be in the write-up, which we will share with you once we make the Canvas classroom for the practicals. So summation of DI minus D average squared, all right? Summation of that divided by n under the square root. That is the value of delta D. Delta D is the error in this value of D average. D average is our value of the diameter and delta D is the error in its measurement. So plus or minus delta D is what the error is going to be. So once you have got that, you can write the zero error also of your instrument. Typically in the lab, you would use a vernier caliper to measure the radius of the bob, which we are not going to do. So there is zero error has very little meaning unless your scale is, has a rough edge on one end and it doesn't quite start at 0 of the centimeter. But otherwise there won't be a zero error. Make sure that you take a scale where the 0 of the scale is properly marked. Okay, so now if this delta D that you have calculated is less than the least count, then least count itself is the error. But if delta D is greater than the least count, then of course delta D itself is your error. So the radius of the bob is then R, which is delta D average by 2, and the error in the radius delta R will be delta D by 2. So the radius is reported as R plus or minus delta R. So whatever centimeters you get plus or minus whatever error you get. So the unit overall will be centimeter, but you will report it as R plus or minus whatever is the value of delta D that you calculate. Now to determine the length of the string, measure the length of the string, keep it in the range of 60 to 100 centimeters, take 3 readings for the length of the string, make an observation table for length similar to the diameter table. So you know what are the formulas we will use. For L average, of course, it's just the average of the 3 numbers that you will get for the length. But for delta L, you will take root mean square value. So you will calculate the absolute error using a formula which is same as the formula I've given you for the diameter. Again, the same logic, if delta L works out to be less than the least count, like what is our least count? 0.1 centimeter. If your delta L is less than 0.1 centimeter, then we'll take always the higher value of the error. So then delta L will be reported as the least count itself. But if not, if delta L is more than 0.1 centimeter, then you will write whatever answer you get from your calculation. So again, the length will be reported as L plus or minus delta L and with a centimeter written here. Any doubt so far in this formula for root mean square absolute average error?
No, ma'am.
Okay, then let's move on. So length of the pendulum is reported here. Error in the measurement of the length of the pendulum will be delta L plus delta R. And now for the time period of pendulum, you will allow the pendulum to oscillate for 10 oscillations. Again, the same thing. You will perform this experiment several times, at least 5-6 times, calculate the absolute error and then the average, of course, average, and then the root mean square error to give you the correct formula. So delta T will be square root of Ti minus T average squared, summation divided by n, the total number of readings, and then square root of that. So once we are done with that, you will again check the same thing. If delta T is less than the least count, then delta T will be the least count. Now, before I move on, what should be the, why I had said earlier that your time period for the least count that you choose for your pendulum should be 1 second and not 0.1 second, even if 0.1 second is given there. What is the typical time period of oscillation of a pendulum which is 1 meter long?
2 seconds. 2 seconds.
So what is the time we are going to need if it was 1 meter long? What will be the time for 10 oscillations?
20 seconds.
20.
2 into 10.
About 20 seconds. Therefore, taking a least count of 0.1 second or 0.01 second makes no sense to take that much of an accuracy, firstly. Secondly, if you take that value, then your absolute error will work out to be always, greater than your least count and so on and so forth. But mostly it is not, it is too less compared to the value of your one reading. if you choose 0.01 or 0.1 second. So you should choose a least count of 1 second so that you will get some experience in calculating an error which is meaningful. So that's why we have said use 1 second. So just because a better accuracy instrument is available, it's not always the most appropriate one, because you don't need that kind of accuracy to measure a quantity which is much larger than the value of the least count. Okay, so having done this, now we are almost at the end of our our observations are already done. Then now we just have to calculate. So the time period of pendulum is given by this formula. Therefore, our acceleration due to gravity g is going to be given by this. If you noticed in my previous table, I never said divide by 10. We are keeping the time as t. So because that's our actual observed quantity, and we have an error on that t, the time period for 10 oscillations. So we would like to retain t, and this t by 10, which is our time period of one oscillation, we will take that. So what we do is we 10 square, we take upstairs and make it 400 pi square L upon t square. So L is an actual observed quantity and t is also an actual observed quantity, so that when we do propagation of error analysis, we will be using the actual errors that we are found from our observation. So using this formula, then finally you will calculate g, which is fine. You will do that by using L average and T average. Now, what about the absolute error in G? That will be given by delta G equal to delta L by L plus 2 times delta T by T. Why it is 2 times? Anybody can tell me this?
It's squared.
Because T is squared here in the denominator. So whenever there is a square, we have to, kind of
Derivative, ma'am.
something
It's
like
a
the
derivative.
derivative formula. So differentiation, actually difference method. So this again has been explained in that video that we have asked you to read as a prerequisite, or even there is a write-up related to that which we can share with you. So you should know these formulas of how to propagate error in a complicated formulas. There will be obviously other formulas which are even more complicated and have more observed quantities in them. Here there are 2. So once you have got this absolute error, delta G, which is this plus twice this, delta T upon T, delta L upon L into G, then the relative error will be given by delta G upon G. So you divide by G, this quantity, that will tell you the error, that is percentage error in, and that is relative error in G is delta G upon G. And percentage error in G is obviously delta G upon G into 100. So we'll get that value. And that brings us to the end of the calculation, and you will quote the average value for G, absolute error delta G, so and the percentage error delta G by G into 100. So this is your final result. Any doubt in the understanding of this whole experiment and how to do the propagation of error, how to do time period measurement, and so on? No doubts? Then please answer this question. If the length of the pendulum is reduced by 10 times, what changes must be brought in measuring instruments?
We
Ma'am,
can take a smaller scale.
Smaller scale. Is that what you said?
An appropriate scale that would measure its length.
Yeah, so 30 centimeter length wali scale se bhi 10 centimeter measure kar hi sakte hain na. What is more relevant is the least count of the scale.
the vernier caliper should be used
So
in
to
such
measure
a case.
what? To measure
To
what?
measure a shorter string, especially considering that
What will
it's
be the length of the string, you think?
approximately 10 centimeters.
Then why do you need vernier caliper to measure 10 centimeters? What is the advantage of using vernier caliper as opposed to a meter scale with 0.1
Ma'am,
centimeter?
because meter scale, a 0.1 centimeter won't won't make that much of a difference, but but when the string is reduced to 10 centimeter, that 0.1 centimeter actually constitutes a larger percentage of
How
the
much
length of the
percentage is it? 10 centimeter and 0.1 centimeter is how much percentage of that?
That's about the 1%
1%.
of its
So I
length.
don't think it is going to cause that much of a problem.
Ma'am, I think so even if the length of the pendulum is getting reduced by 10 times, we don't need a vernier caliper to calculate it because the length is quite measurable.
Yes.
So, ma'am,
What
we
about
also change the number of oscillations that we take. We increase it by multiple times.
okay? And what do we use for measuring the time period of oscillation?
Stopwatch.
Do we need to change its least count or anything? What is going to happen to the time
I
period
think
of
need to,
oscillation? The time
should
period
we
of oscillation
decrease the
will
least
increase
count?
or decrease? First of all, time period itself, tell me, will it increase or decrease?
It will decrease.
Decrease.
It will decrease. So then should you decrease the least count?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So to measure it
I'm-
more accurately, you'll have to use a more accurate stopwatch. So you can decrease the least count. Yeah. Someone was asking something? No? Then let's answer the second question. What's a seconds pendulum? We in fact already answered that question. What's a seconds pendulum? Anyone?
It is a pendulum with length 1 meter and a time period of 2 seconds.
Correct. So if you use 1 meter, that is 1.00 plus or minus 0.01 meter length, simple pendulum, what will be its time period? Where given G is equal to 9.79 plus or minus 0.05 meters per second square. I would want you to obviously calculating the value of time period given that the length is 1 meter and G is 9.79 is not so tough. But I want you to also calculate what is the error in the time period. So if the error in the length is 0.01 plus or minus 0.01 and error in the knowledge of the value of G, which we use as a constant, given constant, is 0.05 meters per second square, you will have to calculate what will be the answer for the time period. So will you be able to manage this propagation of error you will have to do to get that time period? Will you be able to do that? The
Yes.
write-up and the formula for error propagation will be is available in that prerequisite. So I'm not going to give you the answer because I want everybody to read or view the video and then be able to propagate the error properly and get the answer for the time period. We'll write the answer to both these review questions in your final submission that you make for this.